The sun rose over the city of Leora, casting soft light on the old stone orphanage. Children played in the garden. Their laughter echoed through the air like music. Inside, the caretaker, Miss Ilara, handed out warm bread for breakfast. It was a normal morning. Calm. Peaceful. No one knew it would be their last. Hannah, a 10-year-old girl with short black hair and quiet eyes, sat in the corner, drawing with colored pencils. She liked to draw stars and planets. She always said, "One day, I'll fly far away from here." But she would not have to wait long. Something was already flying toward her. Something dark. High above Earth, a fleet of alien warships moved silently through the sky. The Varnak Empire. They were cruel, cold, and powerful. They ruled half the galaxy. Earth had refused to join them. Earth had said no. So the Varnak decided to send a message. Not to the military, not to the leaders, but to the heart of Earth. They chose the orphanage. The warning came too late. A flash lit the sky. People looked up, confused. Then the bomb dropped. In one terrible second, the garden turned to fire. The walls shattered. The laughter stopped. The orphanage was gone. All across Earth, news screens lit up with the same image: smoke, ash, and broken stone. And in the center of it all, a child. Hannah. Her small body was covered in dust. Blood ran down her arm. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stared at the camera, standing alone in the rubble. Behind her, the building still burned. The Varnak's message was clear. You are weak. You are nothing. But they made a mistake. They let her live. Admiral Kor of the Varnak stood aboard his flagship, watching the broadcast. The humans will surrender now, he said coldly. This will break them. But far away, in a hidden base beneath the mountains of Alaska, an old soldier watched the same broadcast. His name was Commander Rourke. Once, he led Earth's most feared unit, Black Star. He had seen war. He had seen death. But something in Hannah's silent stare made his fists tighten. He picked up an old communicator and spoke just 3 words. They crossed it. And around the world, others heard. In the desert of Australia, a woman in a wheelchair stood up for the first time in 5 years. In the ruins of Moscow, a sniper pulled his old rifle from the ground where he had buried it. In orbit, a silent satellite blinked to life. A hidden signal was sent. A name, Black Star. Earth was not broken. Earth was waking up. Back in Leora, rescue teams searched through the ruins. They found only Hannah alive. No other children. No caretaker. Just her. Reporters surrounded her, asking questions, pushing cameras in her face. But Hannah said nothing. Later that night, she sat alone in a hospital room. A soldier brought her food. She didn't eat. "Do you want to talk?" he asked gently. Hannah looked up. Her voice was quiet. Why did they do it? The soldier couldn't answer. She looked away, whispering to herself, "I won't forgive them." Outside the window, a storm began to rise. In space, the Varnak laughed. "Humans are soft," they said. "They care too much. They will beg for peace." They did not understand Earth. They did not understand what they had done. They didn't start a war. They lit a fuse. And now, Earth's fury was coming. The Varnak Empire believed they had won. One bomb. One destroyed orphanage. One silent child. They thought Earth would bow in fear. They didn't know Earth had been preparing for years. They didn't know about Black Star. Deep in the snowy mountains of Alaska, hidden under layers of ice, was an old military base. It had no name, no lights on the map, only silence. But now, that silence broke. A screen inside the control room lit up. 3 red words blinked again and again. Black Star Protocol. Commander Rourke stood in the center of the room. He was old now, gray hair, a scar across his face. But his eyes were sharp. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he whispered, "They finally crossed the line." Rourke turned and gave the order, "Wake them." Across the world, old soldiers felt it. In the deserts of Australia, Captain Lynn got the signal while repairing an old truck. She dropped the wrench and looked at the sky. Her legs hadn't worked in years, not since the last war. But now her implants lit up. Her body trembled. She stood. She didn't smile. She only said, "Finally." In Moscow, snow covered the streets. A man sat alone, cleaning a rifle from a forgotten time. When the black star signal reached him, he opened a wooden box under his bed. Inside was a single bullet, marked with the Varnak symbol. He placed it in the rifle. "Payback," he muttered. In orbit above Earth, a satellite turned itself on. It had slept for 12 years. Now it sent a signal to the dark side of Earth's moon, where something massive began to move. A ship. Not just any ship. Black Star's flagship, the Revenant. Buried and hidden after the last galactic war, the Revenant had weapons no one had seen in decades. Weapons the galaxy had tried to erase. Now, it was waking up. Meanwhile, Hannah sat in a military hospital. She hadn't spoken since the bombing, only once, to ask why the Varnak did it. Now she sat at the window, drawing with the same colored pencils she had used in the orphanage. Her hands were still bruised. Her eyes were still empty. She drew a picture of Earth. Then she drew fire. Miss Ilara's voice still echoed in her head. "There is strength in kindness, but kindness doesn't mean weakness." A knock came at the door. Commander Rourke stepped inside. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at the child. Then he kneeled down and gently placed something on the table. A badge. A black star, scratched from war. "You gave us a reason to rise," he said softly. "We thought we were done, but we were only sleeping." Hannah looked at the badge. She didn't understand it fully, but she felt something inside her shift. Not fear, not sadness. Something sharp, something burning. The galaxy watched Earth. Most alien species laughed. "They lost children," they said. "They'll stay down." But the Varnak began to worry. Strange movements were seen near Earth's orbit. Ships vanishing. Satellites turning black. They sent scouts. None returned. Then came a signal, one message, broadcast to the entire galaxy. A voice. Cold. Familiar. "Black Star has returned." The Varnak's admirals froze. "No," one said. "That unit was erased. We buried them after the siege of Halon Prime." "Apparently," the other replied. "Not deep enough." Inside the Revenant, Commander Rourke stood at the bridge, watching Earth grow smaller behind them. Captain Lynn entered, dressed in armor that shimmered black. "Where do we strike first?" she asked. Rourke's voice was quiet but firm. "We don't strike," he said. "We remind them who we are." He turned to the crew. "Launch the Ghost Fleet. Take their outposts. No survivors. No mercy." The stars outside the window shifted as the Revenant jumped to light speed. Earth was not weak. It was rising. And the ones who came first, the forgotten warriors, were coming back. For revenge. The Varnak controlled 30 worlds. Their ships were fast. Their weapons were feared. And for a long time, no one had dared to fight them. Until now. Black Star was moving. And their message was not spoken with words. It was written in fire. The Varnak mining outpost on planet Kres-9 had no defenses. Why would it? Humans had never reached this deep into space before. But one night, the sky above Kres-9 lit up with flame. A single black ship broke through the clouds, silent, fast, and deadly. It didn't fire warning shots. It didn't give demands. It dropped one object onto the command tower, a small black star, glowing red with heat. Then the explosions began. Within 7 minutes, the outpost was gone. No one survived. In the Varnak command center, Admiral Kor watched the footage in disbelief. Who gave them the tech to strike so far? No one answered. The room was silent. "They were broken," he said. "We destroyed their young. We bombed their soil. Why are they still fighting?" A younger officer stepped forward, nervous. "Sir, they're not fighting. They're hunting." Hannah sat in a quiet room inside Earth's Defense HQ. News of the Black Star attacks had spread across human channels. The world was changing fast. She watched the screen as reporters spoke with fear and wonder. "The ghosts of Earth's past are back, and they are not asking for peace." Miss Ilara's voice still whispered in Hannah's memory. "Never forget who you are, no matter what the world becomes." She didn't speak to the officers who visited her. She didn't touch the food. She only kept drawing. This time, she drew stars, and ships, and flames falling from the sky. On the edge of Varnock space, the Revenant floated like a shadow. Its hull was invisible to sensors. Its weapons needed no light. Inside the command room, Commander Work stood over a glowing map. Every red dot marked a Varnock base they had taken. None had been spared. Captain Lin entered with a report. 3 more Varnock supply lines destroyed, she said. No response from their fleet yet. Work nodded. They're afraid. She looked at him. What happens when they hit back? He didn't blink. We hit harder. The Varnock finally responded. A strike team of elite warriors was sent to Earth. Their target, Hannah. They believed she was the spark that woke Earth's fury. They didn't know Earth was waiting. As the Varnock shuttle entered Earth's airspace, 6 missiles rose from the ocean. Each missile had one target and one purpose. The sky lit up once more. But this time, it was not Earth that burned. In the aftermath, Hannah stood beside Commander Work, watching the smoke from the destroyed shuttle drift across the sky. She finally spoke. "They came for me," she said softly. "Yes," Work answered. "And we stopped them." "Why?" she asked. "I'm just one person." "No," he said. "You're proof that we survive. They thought killing children would break us. But you, standing in those ruins, gave us a reason to fight." She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. And for the first time she smiled. Just a little. The next Varnock station didn't just fall. It shattered. A secret weapons base hidden on the moon of Relith was turned into glass by Black Star drones. No warning, no mercy, just destruction. The galaxy began to whisper. Earth is dangerous again. Black Star is real. And finally, the humans are angry. But Earth wasn't just angry. It was focused. Every loss, every child, every tear burned into memory. Black Star wasn't just fighting a war. They were sending a message. And that message was clear. We are not broken. We are coming. The Varnock had always feared Earth's machines, its bombs, its ships. But what they had forgotten was the man. The one they left behind. The one they should have killed. They called him a myth, a shadow, a ghost of war. But on Earth, they knew his real name. Colonel Dax Mercer. Colonel Mercer had once been the most feared soldier in the galaxy. He didn't use words. He used actions. He didn't need backup. He was the backup. He had disappeared 10 years ago, after the Battle of Red Halo. The last anyone heard, he walked into the frozen wilds of northern Canada. Alone, wounded, silent. No one dared follow. Until now. Commander Work stood inside Black Star HQ, watching the latest reports. The attacks were working. Varnock's supply chains were falling. Fear was spreading. But Work wasn't smiling. He knew what was coming. The Varnock had just sent one of their death fleets, 20 destroyers, and a planet burner, toward Earth. They were done playing games. "We need Mercer," Work said. "If this is the final wave, we'll need the Fury." Captain Lin raised an eyebrow. "You think he'll say yes?" "I don't care," Work said. "Find him. Two Black Star Scouts flew low across the frozen mountains of Canada. Snow whipped their windshields. Sensors picked up something: faint heat, distant movement. Then the signal cut. Both ships went offline. Later, only one returned. Inside was a note, written by hand. 3 words: "Don't send drones." Captain Lin arrived in person. She stepped out of her craft, shivering. The cold bit through her soup like knives. She walked through the trees, through the silence. Then she saw him, standing shirtless in the snow, body covered in scars, eyes like iron. Colonel Dax Mercer. He looked at her but didn't move. "You're needed," she said. "I'm done," he answered. She stepped closer, holding up a small device. It played a recording, 1 minute of silence, then the image of Hannah, standing in the ruins. Mercer didn't blink, but his jaw tightened. She was 10, Lynn said. They'd bombed an orphanage. Mercer turned and walked into his cabin. For a moment, she thought he was saying no. Then the ground shook. A hidden bunker opened behind the cabin. Inside it, the Fury armor. A war suit built for one man. Made from a metal Earth had stopped using because it scared its own engineers. It had only ever been used once. By him. Mercer walked toward it. "Get back to HQ," he said without turning. "Why?" Lynn asked. He slid into the suit. The metal hissed, locking around his arms, his chest, his neck. The eyes glowed red. He answered with just 2 words. "Because I'm coming." The Varnock Death Fleet arrived at Earth's edge 2 days later. They were met by silence. No defenses. No warnings. Just a single human dropship flying straight at them. "Shoot it down," the Varnock commander barked. They did. It didn't work. The dropship exploded halfway to them, on purpose. And from the fire came a single figure, falling like a comet. Burning red. Crashing through their flagship like it was paper. The alarms screamed. Soldiers panicked. One Varnock shouted, "What is it?" The commander watched in horror. "It's him," he whispered. "The Fury walks again." Inside the Varnock flagship, Colonel Mercer tore through walls, armor, and flesh. Nothing stopped him. Not the lasers. Not the tanks. Not the traps. The Fury armor adapted to everything. He moved like death with a heartbeat. Room by room, the ship went dark, until only the command chamber was left. The Varnock commander tried to run. He didn't make it. Mercer didn't speak. He didn't need to. His message was written in blood. The Death Fleet never made it to Earth. Not one ship returned. Black Star released the footage. Not all of it, just one clip. A short, silent video of Mercer stepping out of a burning shipwreck, alone, holding a torn Varnock flag in one hand, and the body of a rescued human child in the other. He looked straight into the camera, then dropped the flag into the fire. In her room at Earth HQ, Hannah watched the video. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She stood. And for the first time, she walked into the war room. Rourke turned to see her enter. She looked up at him. "What's next?" she asked. Rourke looked at the stars on the screen. Then he pointed to the center of Varnock territory. Their homeworld. The Varnock Empire's capital was a fortress. A world that had never known fear. A planet built to withstand war, betrayal, and destruction. The Varnock had made it untouchable. It was where they kept their heart. And it was about to bleed. Black Star had come a long way. They had taken planets, destroyed fleets, and shattered the Varnock's illusions of invincibility. Now, Commander Rourke stood in front of a massive war map, his hand tracing the final path. "We're going to their homeworld," he said, his voice cold. The room was silent. The leaders of Earth's military watched in shock. No one had ever suggested this. Earth was not strong enough to fight the Varnock head-on. The Varnock's capital was a place of legends. No one had ever even tried to reach it. But Rourke's eyes were burning with something more than anger. "We've already lost everything," he said. There's nothing left to fear. Far away, in the dark reaches of space, the Varnak Empire's command center trembled. The homeworld, Cipher, was 1,000 light-years from Earth. It was meant to be a shield, a place no enemy could touch. And yet it was being watched, carefully. A single ship entered Varnak space, unnoticed by the outer defenses. A shadow, silent and swift. The Revenant. Inside the warship, Colonel Mercer sat alone in the cockpit. His face was still, his hand steady as he guided the ship through the quiet expanse of space. Beside him, Hannah watched the stars pass. The cold light flickered in her eyes. "How long until we reach Cipher?" she asked. Mercer didn't look up. "Too long." She nodded, her hands folding in her lap. There was something in her eyes now, something that wasn't there before. "You're not afraid of them anymore," she said quietly. He didn't respond, but there was a flicker of something in his gaze, something buried deep inside. He was used to being the weapon, the one who did the killing. He had never been asked what came after. Days passed as the fleet moved closer. Earth had sent its best ships, its finest soldiers. But it was the Revenant that led the charge. When they finally neared the atmosphere of Cipher, a silence fell over the entire fleet. The Varnak had prepared for this. Their defenses were massive. Layered shields, automated drones, and the best soldiers in the galaxy guarded their world. But Rourke's face was determined. "Make history," he said to his crew. "Show them what happens when you push humanity too far." The Varnak watched from their control stations as Black Star's fleet descended on their planet. The sky above Cipher turned black with ships. No one could escape the sight of it. Admiral Kor stood on the balcony of his tower, watching the screens. His hands were shaking. "They're insane," he muttered. "No one can win against us on our homeworld." He turned to his officers. "Prepare the defenses. Get the war machines to the surface. We'll burn them down before they even reach the city." But Kor's words were empty. Black Star didn't wait for an invitation. The first wave of fighters smashed into the Varnak defenses, breaking through their shields like glass. The Varnak retaliated with lasers and missiles, but Black Star was unstoppable. Ships exploded in every direction. They weren't just fighting, they were annihilating. The Varnak counterattacked, sending everything they had. But the Revenant was not alone. Every ship in Black Star's fleet was equipped with technology so advanced it made the Varnak's best weapons look like toys. Still, the battle raged. On the ground, Mercer led the charge, his Fury armor cutting through Varnak forces. The ground shook with explosions. The planet's surface was scorched and torn apart, as if the Earth itself was taking its revenge. Every time a Varnak fell, it was a victory for Earth. Every strike was a message. On the surface of Cipher, Colonel Mercer moved with a single purpose. He had one goal: to reach the Varnak Council chambers, where the leaders of the Empire were hiding. They had sent every last soldier to fight, but it was the Council they needed to stop. He knew the fight wasn't over. It wasn't just about the military. It was about crushing the heart of the Varnak. Hannah walked beside him, her eyes sharp. She had seen too much loss, too much destruction. "Do you think this will end it?" she asked. Mercer didn't answer right away. He was focused, his mind on the task ahead. "No," he said, "but it will make sure they never forget Earth." Meanwhile, in the council chambers, the Varnak leaders watched the destruction from above. Their planet was dying. Their soldiers were falling. Admiral Kor was losing his grip on his empire. "They're unstoppable," he whispered. One of the council members turned to him. "We need to call for peace. It's over." But Kor just shook his head. "It's too late." And then, finally, Colonel Mercer and Hannah reached the heart of the Varnak capital. The council room was before them, guarded by the last of the Varnak's elite warriors. They stood no chance. Mercer stepped forward, his voice cold and final. "Your empire ends here." With one strike, the door shattered. Inside, the Varnak leaders cowered. The time for negotiation was over. The message was clear to the galaxy. The Varnock Empire was no longer untouchable. Humanity had struck, and the world would never be the same. The Varnock Empire had never known defeat, not in 1,000 years, not in 100,000 battles. They had built their power on the backs of conquered worlds, using fear to control the galaxy. But today, everything had changed. The battle had raged for days. Sci-fi, the once untouchable homeworld of the Varnock, was now a wasteland. Black Star's fleet had torn through the skies, obliterating every defense. The Varnock's best warriors had fallen to the Fury armor and the relentless humans who had come with it. But the heart of the Varnock Empire remained, hidden deep beneath the surface of their planet. The council chambers, the last stronghold of their power. And it was there, at the center of their empire, where the final battle would be fought. Colonel Mercer and Hannah stood in front of the council building. Behind them, the wreckage of the last remaining Varnock fleet smoked in the distance. The ground was littered with fallen soldiers and burning ships. They had fought through the Varnock's last defenses. There was only one enemy left to face: the Varnock Council. Inside the council chambers, the leaders of the Varnock sat, trembling. Their empire was crumbling. The lights in their grand chamber flickered. Their soldiers had failed. The planet's surface was in ruins. "Do you think this will stop them?" one of the council members whispered. Admiral Kor stood at the front, his face pale. "No," he said, his voice shaking. "They will come for us." The council's fear was palpable. They had never imagined an enemy like the humans, never thought they would face a force that could tear down their empire. But they had underestimated one thing: the fury of Earth. Outside, Mercer's steps echoed as he walked toward the doors. Behind him, the Black Star soldiers prepared for what would come next. "We've come for you," Mercer said, his voice cold and final. The door to the council chamber exploded inward, and Mercer and Hannah stepped inside. The Varnock Council rose in shock. "Mercy," one of the council members whispered, their voice trembling. Mercer's eyes didn't waver. "Mercy isn't what we're offering." The council members tried to defend themselves, calling for their elite guards. But it was too late. Black Star had already infiltrated every part of their empire. The Varnock soldiers were no match for the humans, especially not now. The room fell silent. The last of the Varnock's strength was gone. They had no more weapons, no more forces, no hope. "We warned you," Hannah said, her voice low but full of conviction. "You thought you could break us. You thought you could destroy us. But all you did was awaken a fury you couldn't understand." Mercer stepped forward. "Your empire ends now." Admiral Kor, the last Varnock leader who had not yet fallen, stood up slowly. His body was covered in blood. He was battered, but his pride was still intact. "You don't understand," he said. We are the Varnock. We are the future. The galaxy belongs to us." Mercer stepped forward, raising his weapon. "You had your chance," he said, "but the future belongs to us now." The final moments were fast. The Varnock Empire crumbled in an instant. No more battles. No more wars. Mercer and Hannah stood in the wreckage of the council chamber. The once proud Varnock leaders lay defeated. It was over. Later, back on Earth, the world watched as the news of the Varnock's fall spread. The entire empire was in ruins. The mighty Varnock were no more. But that was only part of the story. The human forces had become a force of their own, a symbol of resistance, unity, and power. Black Star had proven that humanity could face anything, no matter how impossible. They had faced the Varnock, a civilization that had been feared for eons, and brought them to their knees. Hannah stood before a crowd, the leaders of Earth's new alliance by her side. The world was watching her. "We didn't just fight to survive," she said, her voice strong. "We fought to show that we can't be broken. We fought to remind the galaxy that humanity will never back down." She paused, looking out at the faces of the people she'd sworn to protect. Her eyes moved toward the stars. The future is ours. Colonel Mercer stood at the back of the crowd, watching the scene unfold. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The fury that had driven him to fight the Varnock now burned for something else. For Earth. For humanity. For those who couldn't fight for themselves. He turned, his eyes reflecting the stars above. And in his heart, he knew the war was over. But the fight for humanity's future had only just begun. The war was over. But the galaxy and Earth had changed forever. The Varnock Empire lay in ruins. Their leaders had been defeated, their fleets scattered to the wind. But there was no victory celebration, no parades, no cheering crowds. The fight had been too costly, too brutal. For the humans, it had never been about just defeating an enemy. It had been about survival, about proving that they could stand tall in a galaxy full of threats. But now that the fight was over, the real challenge had begun. In the heart of Earth's new capital, Commander Awoke stood looking out at the horizon. The skies above were clear. Peace had finally come, but it was a fragile peace. The galaxy had seen humanity's power, and it was only a matter of time before others came to test it. "I've always wondered what would happen when we won," Awoke said softly. "Now I know. We have to rebuild. We have to prove we can handle this new power." Beside him, Hannah looked up at the stars. The galaxy was vast, and for the first time, humanity had a place in it. But that meant responsibility. And with responsibility came danger. "What happens next?" she asked. Awoke turned to face her. "We lead. We rebuild. And we make sure this never happens again." Back at Earth's headquarters, Colonel Mercer stood alone in the darkened war room. His helmet was off, his Fury armor lying on the floor beside him. He hadn't spoken much since the last battle. The victory had been hollow for him. So many had died. So many lives lost. But there was one thing he couldn't forget. "The war is over," he said softly to himself. "But they're still out there." He was talking about the other threats, the ones who had watched humanity fight and survive, the ones who hadn't yet decided whether humanity was an ally or a future enemy. Mercer knew that peace wouldn't last forever. He knew that war, in some form, was inevitable. But Earth had shown that it could fight. It had shown that humanity would not go quietly into the night. Later that evening, a fleet of ships arrived. It was a small fleet, but the ships were sleek and advanced. They didn't belong to any known race. Commander Awoke, along with Hannah and Mercer, stood in front of Earth's command center, watching as the ships descended. "Who are they?" Hannah asked, her voice tense. "We'll find out," Awoke said. "Stay ready." The ships landed smoothly, their engines humming with power. As the doors opened, the first figure stepped out. A tall, armored being, its skin a deep violet, its eyes glowing with a cold, unnatural light. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the figure spoke. "You are humans, yes." The voice was deep and resonated like thunder. Awoke stepped forward, not showing fear, but not showing arrogance either. "Yes, and you are." "I am Azurix," the figure said. "I represent the collective of the Outer Rim." Hannah and Mercer exchanged a glance. The Outer Rim was a collection of unknown species, and not all of them were friendly. They were the ones who watched from the shadows, who didn't intervene, but who had their eyes on Earth. "We have heard of your victory," Azurix continued. "We've seen your strength, and we come not to threaten, but to make an offer." The air grew thick with tension. Awoke's hand instinctively reached for his sidearm, but he kept it in place. The galaxy was full of potential allies, but also enemies. "What kind of offer?" Awoke asked. Azurix stepped closer. "We have seen that Earth is capable of standing against the greatest empires in the galaxy. We offer an alliance, a chance to join us in a coalition of races." The offer hung in the air. It was a powerful one. An alliance with the Outer Rim would give humanity unprecedented power and access to technologies that could elevate them beyond anything they had ever dreamed of. But with that power came a cost. The price of entry into the galaxy's most powerful coalition was high, and not every species in the Outer Rim would welcome humanity with open arms. Mercer watched quietly, his mind running through the possibilities. He had seen what alliances could do to weaker species. Could they trust the collective? Were they truly offering peace, or were they looking for a new weapon to use in their wars? Why now? Hannah asked. Why offer this alliance after we defeated the Varnock? Azirix's eyes glowed brighter. Because we are watching. We are always watching, and we know that a new power has risen, one that can no longer be ignored. Rourke took a long, slow breath. We'll need time to consider your offer, he said. But know this, Earth will never bend to anyone. We fight for ourselves, not for others. Azirix studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. We expected as much. We'll give you time, but the offer stands. The galaxy is watching you. Humans, you are no longer just a species in a corner of the universe. You are part of the story now. With that, Azirix turned and walked back to the ship. The others followed. The stars above Earth seemed brighter now. The war was over, but the future had just begun. Colonel Mercer stood alone for a moment longer, his eyes fixed on the departing ships. He didn't know what lay ahead. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, allies and enemies alike. But one thing was certain, humanity had taken its place. The fight wasn't over. It would never be over. But now, Earth stood on the edge of something greater than survival. It stood on the edge of a new beginning.